Right, so today we speak with Erin Andrea Craske. She is an award-winning strategist with an illustrious 20 years in brand development, from her role as global head of consumer brands to her current position as an ICF certified business and leadership success coach. Erin brings a wealth of expertise in guiding businesses towards impactful audience activation. Welcome to the Activate Your Audience podcast, Erin.
Well, thank you so much. Great to be here. Thank you for
It's my
inviting.
pleasure. All the way from our first guest, I think, across the pond. So let's get right into it. If you
Mhm.
could, please give us a brief overview of your career, your personal journey, from working as a brand professional to where you are now.
Oh, you know what? Providing how many years I spent in brand development, probably going to be a very long intro. But yes, I was progressing in the area of brand strategy, business strategy, and communication strategy, working with around 40 big brands that pretty much household names. And from there, moving into coaching. So that, basically repeating what you just said, but that's going to be a short summary. If there's anything that you would like me to dwell on, I'm happy to do that. I'm just
Sure. I mean,
conscious of not, spending too much time of your listeners sharing biography information.
yeah, no worries. I get that. So with I saw you were at Mars, earlier on.
Yeah.
What were some, I guess, experiences from working at Mars? What was your role there? And maybe how you apply that to what you currently do now with business coaching.
Right. Okay, in this case, let's go a little bit further back because I started in L'Oreal, then I moved to Reckitt Benckiser. And if we talk about brand marketing, I have to say that the best company that was the brand marketing school for me, and probably was the best brand marketing school at that time, it was British American Tobacco. So if you can imagine the size of the industry, the budgets, the competition that we had, and the sophistication of approaches, because again, you do have budgets, you do have competition that you have to get through. At the same time, together, you need to be as top level in everything that you do, starting with research and all the latest research practices. We were implementing, we were the first companies, tobacco industry to do so. Creativity, totally crazy executions, mind blowing executions. We had to do it, all different types of activation events, as innovative as it was required, or prestigious required by the brands. So everything that you would think about proper, classic
Yeah.
brand building, this is where I learned it. With Mars, it was a contract position, and there actually I had, oh my God, I was blessed because I was chosen, I was selected by the guy who is a legend in brand marketing. This is the guy who created brand positioning for
Okay.
M&M's. And he picked me because he came from consumer marketing experience, and we were working for bits a bit division at that time of
Okay.
Mars. And he picked me to lead the repositioning of 4 brands because it was like an offer that we were providing to B2B customers. And it was global repositioning. And he picked me because we resonated in terms of how brands are supposed to be built and what brand positioning really is versus what people generally think it is. Right, there's a big difference, to be honest. So that's how I appeared in marketing, and I loved it because I have my own theory in terms of what brand marketing is and brand strategy and brand strategist. So for me, it's a combination of substance and style. Style is obviously your visual representation, your brand expression, and substance is psychology. So you can't be a brand strategist if you have no empathy and you have no understanding or appreciation of psychology.
Very
So
true.
as simple as that. And I absolutely loved both.
I love that. Could you dive into maybe with the, exceptional execution, at the, what was the tobacco conglomerate again?
British American Tobacco.
So at British American, some of the activation or some of like the creative, could you dive into what some of those look like?
Well, it was a very long time ago. right? And in terms of activation, really depends on what you're looking at. It could be as simple as promotion.
Hmm.
It can be sampling, but it's never was sampling that was just pure giving away products. It always was linked to whatever events, right? We were creating different awards, brand specific awards, such as Design Innovation Award that was sponsored by the brand. We were creating different events of high luxury, luxury style, where the brand was represented through sensory marketing. And this is actually something that I noticed later on, because in my world, when we were creating activation activities, they were never for the sake of having leads, or for the sake of sampling, or
Hmm.
for the sake of I don't know, having people signing up, or whatever currently is happening. Because in my world, activation has always been part of your communication strategy. It was activating your brand positioning, right? So leads, actually, they became irrelevant because it was about sensory experience. So the consumers could feel the brand and appreciate it and remember it. So it was translating the image through whatever, tools were available to us.
Yeah,
It wasn't just talking about the brand, it was experiencing it. And
for
that was
sure.
a big difference at that time, because now I think in certain cases it may look a little bit downgraded.
Yeah, and I think with, things like your net promoter scores, right? Like you're gauging the consumer's sort of emotional and referral scores for that. Is that something that you guys would track? Is that something that you guys would look at, again, quantifying the return on investment for those efforts?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It wasn't a little bit, well, it wasn't quite like that. And this is exactly what I write about in my brand strategy guide that I recently published. So, first of all these numbers and return of investment, actually, it's going into the rabbit hole, right? It doesn't indicate the success of your brand, or it doesn't indicate the sustainability of your business or longevity of your offer, right? Because they're short-term measures, and this is exactly what you focus on when you start looking at leads or scores or conversion numbers or return of investment. It's for one campaign only, and it's very easy to track, but it has nothing to do with the success or longevity of your business. Because if you want your business to be profitable and sustainable, you need to take care of profitability. And profitability is only long term as a compound effect of different activities that all contribute to your brand equity. This is how it must work, and not moving from one activity to another one, because you are just spreading your resources, and the incremental you're going to get, it's not representative, it's not sustainable, it doesn't tell you anything. So what we were planning our campaigns usually through the line, and I understand it's not always possible with limited budgets, to go through the line, but there are ways around it. Or even using digital, you can still activate it through different communication vehicles, communication tools, to create it more of a 360 approach rather than just, whatever advertising or, digital activation you do. And how it was planned initially. So you have your activity recommendation. Activity recommendation describes everything that should be done within this activity. And then you explain the rationale, why you recommend this and that, and how it will contribute to the brand equity, right? And this is how you measure the end result of the activity. So first of all, after every activity, you're going to have evaluation, right? And it's like I wrote in my book, I know it's sounding like a broken record, but I do like this sentence. It's like everybody became professional in assessing conversions without understanding why conversions don't convert, right? So after you run your activity, you're supposed to run an evaluation, full evaluation of activity, to understand realize, which tools, which scenarios, which part of this activity contributed to what, why it worked, why it didn't work, how you can improve it in the future. And then we were measuring our brand image attributes, brand equity, and obviously trade marketing metrics in terms of sales, whatever, these kind of hard numbers. I think it was every 2 months or every quarter. So you can see how your every activity contributes to the overall standing of your brand. It's not from here to now, it is a contribution. And obviously from this contribution, comes your sales. So this is how it works. And another thing I believe that people don't realize nowadays is that most of businesses, they start pushing sales and they put sales on the pedestal, like this is where the money is coming from. That is not correct. Money is not coming from what you sell. Money is coming from what people buy. It's it's a massive difference because it makes you switch your mindset from me, my activity, my product, my sales to my customer. I know everybody talks about it, but somehow, I don't understand why, but people don't follow it. And often, we perceive that our sales department and our salespeople, those who drive volume. But in reality, if you look at your company P&L, it's going to be your brand P&L because this is the brand that you sell and this is what's behind, right? And your company will be as profitable as your brand profitability. Nothing to do with sales. Sales is a support function. Your brand profitability is driven by marketing. So
And
that's
that is sort of the tension between departments, right? Sales and marketing always have this sort of like, well, sales wants quality leads if you're into a service, right? Or if you're, promoting CPG, and marketing and your brand is sometimes, especially, it's changed now, but it used to be a harder metric to quantify. And you need to know inputs to outputs, right? We need to know, at least especially from an executive level, they want hard numbers, they want inputs to outputs. So what have been some of the, in your
Well,
opinion, the best ways to
what?
sort of,
I'm really sorry, but I believe I'm being really harsh here, very honest. It's from poor business literacy. Because I understand that looking at these hard numbers, immediate conversions, is much easier. It's much more comfortable. When you don't have enough budget, what actually you do, you don't plan your activities beforehand. What you do, okay, so I do have a little bit of budget left. Let's try this activity. Well, let's see what it brings. Oh, it didn't bring enough, right? So we don't have budget further for communication. Now let's try something else. Let's see what this will bring, right? So everybody is looking at immediate numbers, but if you only build your business on return on investment and immediate activities, cash earnings, you will downgrade your business, you will downgrade your brand, you will downgrade your category because the margins, going to be affected because this is what you do. You're constantly kind of trying to discount and promote through this product communication. And also by downgrading category margins, you will downgrade your earnings. And usually when you only look at activation, what will happen, you will condition your customers on buying through activation activities, right? Instead of having an inflow, constant inflow of customers that are not driven by your activities or activation, but they're driven by your brand and the connection that they have with your brand. They are not different things, and there shouldn't be a competition because when you have a strategy, that is an umbrella for your brand. All activities fall under this umbrella, and then your salespeople going to get their quality leads. It's not either or. They have to be work and synergy.
that makes sense. Now, pivoting into, say, business leadership, as you said, some of the issues as you find it are more like literacy, right? So, what do you see in terms of leadership coaching? Are some of the strategies that you recommend for them to really understand that brand messaging, for them to be able to target their audience with maximum engagement?
Well, you know what? It's not a rocket science. So we're not talking about leadership skills right now because it's a totally different communication or conversation altogether. We talk about one simple thing, that if you are a brand owner or if you are a business owner, and even if you have this fantastic title, it doesn't always mean that you know how to run business. It's not exactly the same. So my recommendation would be at some point to step back and realize that you may not know everything, right? And probably following best practices because you don't know better, but because everybody talks about that and you just follow because you think that it works, probably it would make sense to step back and to look at classic marketing principles, look at profitability and what drives it. So basically just enhance your knowledge. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that you may not know. There's nothing shameful about it, right? What is probably going to be shameful if you stroke your ego because you are brand owner and because everybody going to do as I told. That is shameful. Not knowing is not. Right? So that would be my recommendation. And another thing that I would like also to mention, since we talk about communication, I understand that activation is typically perceived as BTL activity, but you know what I also noticed, and it's about brands and products, how much communication is targeted to promote products. So here is a rub. Promoting product is not sustainable because you're always gonna have a better product. If you position yourself cheap, it's gonna be somebody coming and offering cheaper. If you position yourself as high tech, you know what? Somebody will learn from you, find your mistake, and offer something better. Product communication is not sustainable. And another thing that works, it doesn't work because it immediately puts you in a category of commodities. And if you're a commodity, usually what drives consumer decision making is the price. You have no connection, you have no differentiation because this differentiation that exists today won't exist tomorrow. And in a real world of marketing, again, if we talk profitability, if we talk long-term business building, not here and now, in this case, your product-led communication takes around 25% of your communication topics.
Okay.
It's only 25% for product-led messages. The rest, it can be anything, image, value, belief, vision, emotional things, education, anything, but not pure product because you just simply can't get through the clutter,
So when you say not pure product marketing, how do you differentiate between product marketing and brand marketing? Are you saying those are two different ones? And what is the approach in terms of, could you paint a picture of what each one of those look like for our audience?
What is the difference for you between the brand and the product?
So the product is, as you said, it's the commodity, it's the thing itself. The brand is the ideal, the image, the imaginary narrative around it, right? It's a
Exactly.
story. So
Yeah.
how do you look at and how do you give actionable tips for leaders or for individuals to understand the difference between the two if they haven't had as much experience within either or?
Yeah. Well, the first tip would be to create brand positioning because, as you rightly said, one of the words that drive brand versus product is going to be image, right? Another one's personality. Then you have meaning. Then you have emotions that you cultivate, right? So brand is everything that product is not. Product is tangible and brand is intangible. Right? And when you create communication or creative advertising for something that is intangible, that would be called image advertising. When you have advertising where your product and your product message will be the main hero, then it's called product advertising. Actually, I came across, when I was writing the book, I came across an article on the internet, somebody saying, oh my God, image advertising is kind of getting popular, and they were referring to Dove famous campaign,
Okay.
with ladies in white underwear.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what? Image advertising is getting popular? The first image advertising, it was in 1950 something. It was Marlboro Man. That was image advertising. So it's not something that is new. It's just so many things that get forgotten since we got this into rise of digital. We forgot about strategy because we're all about tactics. We forgot about profitability because now it's return of investment. We forgot about image and brands because now it's a product with a brand name and a product message. So the whole area of marketing got downgraded. And now, I was invited to speak on Australian TV, and the message is strategy, business strategy is being elevated. No, it just happened that we all forgot about it. It doesn't mean that it disappeared.
Right.
So it's exactly the same with brands. So if they are on the rise, understanding that brand is a little bit more than what we used to think, it's going to get great because those companies who switch their thinking from how to why, they will be winning. It's actually easy. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, I
Change the
love that.
question.
It's a good fundamental approach shift. And so with you, so say for example, as a coach, right? How do you think about your image and your product marketing, right? In the commodity of coaching, what is your sort of right? Effortless coaching is your brand, right? How do you look at positioning the product and the brand for something like a service, right?
Oh my God, thank you so much for this question because that is incredible. When I was looking for a job and I had so many years looking for a job, I had so much experience, just sickening. And I was applying for different product categories. And actually, I do have different product categories in my past because I found it to be more fun because you always enter a category with a fresh perspective, fresh pair of eye, right? And I thought it doesn't really matter because the principles of marketing are exactly the same. And I was applying for B2B and I never got interviewed because it's a different type of brand strategy, brand building. I don't know what they meant. And I always wanted to say, so now I know why your category is so boring, right? Because you simply don't know how to build brands. And when you ask me about services or B2B it doesn't really matter because whoever pays for what you offer, whether it's a product or a service, it's a human being. So tell me where the difference can come from. Having cloned financial services or cloned insurance services or cloned something else that is boring to death. Industrial services, why? Legal? Because everybody does it because we're B2B and so what? And you can't create differentiation because you are afraid of focusing on your customers. This is what you're afraid to lose, or you're afraid to lose your face because we're all in blue and white. And this is our logo, or technology. They have, I used to have it in my book, but I had to remove all logos because, of trademark issues. And I have downloadable free of charge, from the website. There are three categories: finance, technology, and pharma. They all use blue, but different shades of blue. And you will look at it and they all use exactly the same shade of blue within their category. It's insane, right? So how do you create differentiation? What do you talk about? Because we all talk about messages. Another thing sorry, I can't stop now. I don't remember what the question was about. Yeah, I remember. Another thing that I absolutely adore is loads of businesses, they ask for help with messages. I need a message. But my question, how can you have a message if you don't have a brand? It's not like putting something in front of the horse. It doesn't work this way. First, you have to have the brand, and then you have to have your message. And if you don't have your brand, your message is going to be product driven and they're going to be boring because you don't have much to talk about. How can you diversify your communication if it's all about the same product features? So coming back to your question in terms of services and again, other categories, the approach is exactly the same. You study your market, you study your target audience, you look at who you are, at least in my case, this is what I did, and this is what I help some of my clients. It's not my kind of working coaches or sole entrepreneurs. It's not my kind of direction, not my business, but I'm happy to help. And it is about understanding who you are first and foremost, whether you're a brand as a person or whether you're a brand as a business, and then match it with your customers. But you don't stop at the level of features and attributes. You go into rational benefits, emotional benefits, self-actualization benefits, and existential benefits. Because when you come to the level of existential benefits, this is where you can actually go further up to a purpose and belief. And as we know, for younger generation that I don't belong to, these are part of brand positioning that are quite important, the contribution back. So if you want to have your longevity, sustainability, and you want to stay with younger generation, well, then do something about it. Reconsider your brand. So yeah, to offer you a short answer, finally, there's no difference in how you approach it.
Right. Yeah, there's a, as you mentioned, consumer-centric approach, right? And I would imagine even with, a big pharma company, right? They're putting millions of dollars in research, they're putting sort of their test groups and their, if there's a logo rebrand, it's not cheap for them, but there's a reason why they stay blue in their mind, right? But say as a small business or even them, like say an executive who wants to create some sort of differentiation, it's not so much in terms of like a logo and color that may move the needle for them, but to your point, it's still in terms of how they identify to these deeper core ideas, these brand narratives of their product or of their brand that maybe, maybe they are all boring and the same and there's no differentiation. Or maybe if you are, say, a doctor there or a client there, there is one heroic brand leader, marketing leader that is actually thinking about the things with that person in the center of that clock, right? Of the purchase model clock, right? So with that, how would you say is have there been any ways in where you're coaching or where some of your clients have looked at whether it's developing their personal brand, where they lean more towards on that journey? If their customer, their avatar is at the center of that, do they focus more on a pre-purchase, post-purchase, during the purchase stage of that process for building a brand? Like if they are trying to double down in a certain area, is that something that you see applies more in a certain area, or is it part of the strategy individual to that business and leader?
Sounds to me like there's a presupposition that customers change depending on the funnel stage. Did I understand it correctly?
In terms of,
This is what I understood from the question. When my clients look at post-purchase, pre-purchase. So again, my understanding is that the presupposition is that the customers change from one stage, funnel stage, to another.
right, yeah, if a customer is obviously, as you know, in the beginning, ready to purchase, right?
All
They're
right. Okay.
right.
Okay. So that
Versus
is,
versus somebody who may have already bought from you, right? Who you want to maintain as a customer. They're
and
at a different life stage, right?
and is this thinking actually is behind creating avatars, multiple
Correct.
avatars?
Right.
All right.
So,
Okay. Right. So this is what I creating a targeting mess. Because when you look at your customer, you look at their values and their lifestyle, you go much deeper. So you have, usually have segmentation, but even if you don't, right, first of all, you don't create avatars from imagination or from wishful thinking, right? You still do your desk research, even if you
right.
don't have money for a proper, or you can buy, some research agencies offer you industry specific reports that is much cheaper than segmentation study, but it will give you a better understanding of your customers,
Yeah.
right? So, and when you create your segmentation is based on your customers' values, their emotional needs, and their lifestyle. Nothing to do whether they're pre-purchase or post-purchase. What will differ? So you identify your target customer according to this deep thing that you have to find out what it is about as a human being, about another human being. What happens that later you will discover that within the same value segment, you will have people that, I don't know, for sake of exercise, purchase online. Some of them purchase offline. Some of them purchase in bulk. Some of them, it doesn't really matter. So that's going to be your tactical. So this segment, your customer segment stays exactly the same, but their activities, their tactical activities or preferences, they will change. So then you can target and communicate to different people according to their preferences, but they will still belong to the same value segment. You can't have multiple avatars. Or at least you can say that they're all exactly the same people, but they shop in the morning, they shop in the evening, whatever the differentiation is. Because if you don't approach from this perspective, this is what I believe will happen when you have your avatar and then you add an image. All right, this is how it looks like, this is my customer. And then through working with customers, you find out that actually your customer looks something different. But you can't change this one because that was my original customer. What am I going to do? Let me add another avatar. And let me add another one. So now I have like 4 avatars. It's not targeting, it's a mess. It doesn't work this way. So there was another thing that you mentioned when we talk about pre-purchase, post-purchase. The difference between different funnel stages is that you apply different communication tools or approaches to the same person. Right? We agree that it's the same person in the same segment. The difference is that you have emotional messages that drive awareness and consideration. You have rational messages, only ones, that drive your trial, your first purchase. This is going to be your product information, price information, so typical rational promotion offer messages. From trial purchase to regular purchase is going to be your experience, and experience, surprise, surprise, is emotional. Because it's not only about using the product, which is fantastic, but using the product, this action will create emotions in your clients. I like it, I don't like it, basic, right? At least. So that's emotional. And then when you go to loyalty and advocacy, it's 100% emotional, but it's not about image any longer, something that works at awareness and consideration stages. Loyalty and advocacy is stages that are built on trust and recognition of your customers for human beings. When they feel they're appreciated, when they feel they're taken care of, that's going to drive your loyalty and advocacy, and not bribing them with loyalty offers, because the latest research shows that they will use your loyalty offers, but they're not going to stay long. So you're wasting your money, basically.
That makes sense. Now let's jump into maybe some of the common challenges. Like with your experience, what have been some of the common pitfalls that you see brands run into, which you mentioned some of them, and how would you recommend businesses overcome some of these run-of-the-mill challenges that everybody seems to find themselves in?
Well, we talk about most of those challenges. The biggest one that nowadays is very difficult, it's very challenging to find a company that build brands. It's much easier to find a company that offers products and brands them, give them brand names. So it's not the same. And from this, then comes the communication stage that we discussed at length in the beginning in terms of return of investment and tactical activities and shifting directions, right? That's another thing that drains resources and budgets.
Right.
And it comes from the fact that there's no strategy behind it. So when you have no strategy, you have no business. You have disjoint activities that waste resources of your people, because every time they need to run into a different direction, instead of having one roadmap towards the destination where you want to be, where everything is aligned, people are aligned, resources are aligned, you know where you go. right? No, instead we kind of, whatever the first of command, will want to say, we're going to do it, and then they change their mind and we're going to do. So the first advice, grow your growth mindset, learn, right? Reconsider, accept that you may not be always right as much as you would like to be. Then we'll talk about leadership, to give trust to people, but in reality, just create a strategy. Your value proposition, your brand positioning, and they will dictate all your activities. Analyze your market properly. It's like we call innovation anything that's just a little bit remotely different from what is already on the market. So that's one thing. Just let's adjust it and call it innovation. And another one is let's do something that consumers ask for or competitors have. Whether we need it, whether it's in line with our strategy, whether we have resources, whether we can properly support it, because we don't have portfolio strategy. Because portfolio strategy is a different thing, but we start creating many, many different offers. I was talking one to the company, I find it fascinating. They don't do any research at all. They create new products. They were leaker products.
Okay.
And they launch it, and then they watch and they see whether it takes off or it doesn't. If it doesn't, they bin it and they launch another one.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, have you ever thought of your people that always in the process of launching something, the last moment, just to see all the efforts going down the drain? Because it doesn't work. Let's do another one. Right? So if somebody thinks it's a sustainable business, unfortunately it is not.
It sounds like a lot of what you are bringing it back to is the individual leader, right, or the team, leadership team, setting the foundation of strategy in place and not just jumping at shiny object syndrome of, like you said, our competitors are doing this, or yes, the consumer wants this, and obviously we want to appease and serve the consumer. But when we're talking about innovation, we're really going back to the strategy. And the first route that you keep mentioning is the growth mindset, right? The learning, right? We don't know what we don't know. We're always evolving. As you say, there's sometimes egos and there's like lay of the land that people don't want to admit that they don't know what they don't know, right? And so where if that is the one thing, is that what you would focus on? The one thing of the individual to learn? And if the individual obviously can't learn everything and has a team to support them, how do you sort of paint the picture of if it's learning and improving skill set or competence or knowledge as the primary thing, what is the sort of trajectory to then influence the innovation and then the growth and so on and so forth?
Right. Okay. There's one comment I would like to tell you. I mean, it's like the biggest truth and the most painful, but you ask for it. So you know that your business is as good as your leadership team, or your business performance is a reflection of your leadership team. So this is something to reflect on, I guess.
Yeah.
And with regards to where to start with strategy. We don't know what strategy is nowadays. Well, learn what it is. I would love to promote my book, obviously, because it's written for small and medium size and startups, and it covers all possible strategies in kind of it's in snippets. So it's quite a big book, but there's no water, right? It's like a reference book. Everything that you need to know in there, and that in the end of it, you will find the list of recommended reading for different areas that the book covers. So you can start from that place, or you can just look at strategy books and, go from there. But, it's like nothing, I guess. It's very challenging to survive or stand the taste of time without foundation, if we talk about anything. So strategy is the foundation for a business.
Very
Without
true.
it, you may continue. I mean, it doesn't mean that you will die immediately, although if we talk about smaller businesses and startups, their failure rate around 50% the first 3 to 5 years, and then it goes up to 80%. So, surprise, surprise, the first 3 to 5 years in business, it's called strategic planning period, right? It's as simple. If you don't have a strategy, your chances to survive become limited, or you will stop enjoying your business, but you will be perceiving it as an everyday struggle. So it's entirely up to the person. If they want to struggle, if they want to fail, it's okay, right? And learn from the failures, fine. Somebody is young and they have opportunity to learn from their mistakes. But if you don't, then it's probably easier to learn something about business or business strategy and start from this place.
I love that. Yes, as a main thing to sort of focus on, not only because it's the life cycle, or the beginning, I should say, of the life cycle of your business, but as an individual and even as a leader, which, as you mentioned, reflects how your
Yeah.
your end product is, how your team is performing, how your business is valuing, to really focus on that. And yeah, why wouldn't strategy, the thing that is sort of encompassing the tactical and all of the, campaigns, the activities, the execution, be the main thing that sort of holds that together? So with that being said, let's pivot maybe a little bit into storytelling. How do you look at creating storytelling techniques that are, authentic, in order to connect with audiences for businesses and brands?
Yeah, it's a very good one. That's, I guess, depends on two factors. So the first one, if you have a brand, it will have story behind it, because we said that brand can be defined as a meaning, image, and personality, right? So if your brand has a personality, it will have a story that comes with it. It's a big trend that started a few good years ago about humanizing your brands. So this is how you create it. There's no rocket science. Again, you have different act structures that is already pre-written. So you just follow the act structure and you create the story for your brand. In personal branding, I believe it's a little bit more challenging because it depends how much you want to reveal about yourself. I do have my story on my brand, on my website. I think I have two, as a brand, as a person. But for me personally, it was a struggle because I'm not a big fan of talking about myself, and it's as much as I wanted to reveal, although I know I'm supposed to build connection with people. So it is individual for everybody. But I'm pretty sure that you always find something that you can talk about, keeping your privacy unchallenged. Yeah, look for three-act structure. There are plenty different guys that wrote about it. With what I recommend in my book is, often when you tell exactly the same story again, you start sounding like a broken record. If you want to avoid it, first of all, you can shift the story a little bit. Depending on the occasion, you can emphasize one part and kind of hide a little bit another one. So it's going to create a bit of diversification. Another thing, there are different act stories offered by different people. So every time you can pick a different one and use it slightly different structure. So again, it will make you sound a little bit more diverse, in your message, rather than saying exactly the same thing all the time. And another advice when I talk about products, about stories. So once it's a founder story, it can be a brand story, why the brand was created. You can have a product story. One of an amazing brand of eyewear in the States, I think Warby Parker, this is how they're
Yeah.
called. They have amazing product story. The story about how the product is made,
Okay.
even that. Or you can use your customer stories. And this is where your advocacy and loyalty will come from. When you listen to your customers, understand their stories, and if you build connection to feature. So it shouldn't be story only about something. Stories can be about anything depending on your strategy, depending on your communication strategy, because you're supposed to have your communication plan and say this month we talk about that and next month we talk about this. And every time, because you rotate your messages, what you will get at the end of the day, you're going to get a more holistic appreciation of your brand and business. Because out of all this, messages will be the whole going to be created.
I love that. And with all of that, right, it seems like it's work, right? It's a long-term play. It's something that's going to live in hopefully eternity to some extent for in terms of the story and the business. How does a leader or a team think about the overwhelming challenge? Like where do you position and direct people to start with that? So once you've learned strategy or as you're learning strategy, what is the first sort of actionable thing or in the overwhelm of kind of meta approach, looking at the strategy to strategy, how do you think about all that over?
Strategy will indicate the direction that you need to take. The strategy will indicate objectives. So from goals, you go into strategy. From strategy, you go into objectives. And from objectives, you go into implementation, right? It depends on the objectives that you set for your business for a certain period of time. Usually it's 12 months if you really want to achieve a transformation. And these objectives will indicate what type of activities are fitted or can answer these objectives within the limits of our resources. Because it's not, you do plan it in advance, but you give different ratings to your activities, something that you must have, must do, or something that is nice to have. So you will do it if your budget allows, right? You monitor your budget during the year and you see if you have money to invest something within, nice to have category. And if you don't, you cut it off. But it's not like, what I recommend to do. It's what the strategy recommends to do according to the goals that they want to achieve.
That. All right. So I'm gonna sort of run it back and highlight some of the stuff that stood out for me, and then you fill in anything that I might have missed. So starting at the end, sort of the beginning approach is to look at strategy as a whole. And there are your books, there are resources that an individual, a team can look at just learning fundamentals, learning what they don't know, being open to just sort of pay down the tax of ignorance, as I like one of our mentors saying. So just being okay with learning strategy and that being the guide that will inform you within your resources, within your bandwidth, what you can execute on, right? The next point that I got is the experience being the last step of the strategy or the last step of the journey, right? That stood out.
So if you're in a trial stage, if you bought this product for the first time, you like the experience of purchase, consumption, unwrapping, whatever the product is, and I think it's around 8 purchases or whatever, it really depends on the industry. And if every time when you try it, you get this positive experience, then you will move on to loyalty. Because there are different psychologists of different customers, some of them loyal, some of them kind of dating, some of them date 2 different products, at the same time. So it's not, there's no cookie cutter. Right? Every customer has their own psychology behind it. But in pure theory, people move into loyalty when they're consistently satisfied with the experience.
Got it. Perfect. And the next takeaway I got was to focus on one avatar and don't be afraid to change your avatar. Instead of tacking on 3 or 4 avatars, being okay with switching out and knowing, hey, I actually listened or paid attention. Let me give this avatar a sort of center stage. And the next takeaway is B2B is brand building. So whether it's B2 business or whether it's a product, it's all the same. Your customer's at the center, you're creating this story. And then finally, money doesn't come from what you sell, but from what people buy. I think that's a great reminder, very simple way of like emphasizing it's not, what you want to push down people's throat. It's about, like you said, understanding what the audience wants, but also the money will come from what they need. And it's a more giving, generous service solution approach rather than a taking sort of selfish approach. Is there anything else you would add to any of those or anything I might have missed?
So the relevant one, why nobody questions the need for strategy in a war, and why everybody questions the need for strategy in business where there is a fight for every share point.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So,
and as you mentioned, I think within, as you know, with leadership coaching, just to highlight that, a leader has this sort of respect and this sort of love and maybe a sort of fear. and the right leaders who, if you're in a general, if you're in an army, if you're in war, you follow what the strategy is. Even if you're the soldier, even if you're the colonel who
Yeah.
doesn't see the whole playing field.
Yeah.
So it sounds
Exactly.
like with strategy, if you have a good leader, a good person who's actually invested and
Yeah.
understands and has earned that love, that respect, and that well-suited power, right?
Yeah.
Not egoic power, but power out of they've earned it, competence, then the strategy would inform the continuity of that business.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah. That's correct.
I love
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. What else would you plug in? I know definitely mention the book. Is there anything else that we can learn about you, or where can people find out and follow your journey?
So people can just click on this link and find as much about me or the book as they'd like to.
Erin is a resident of Checha and who is an expert, as you have heard, on empowering impact-driven business leaders and has equipped her clients with the tools needed to elevate their brand engagement to new heights. We look forward to chatting again.
Well, thank you so much. Pleasure was mine.